Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going lovely. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I am super excited to share with you 3 projects with the HeroArts My Monthly Hero Kit for January 2021. Now this kit did sell out. It was so popular. You know why, because they have bumblebees and florals. I just think it's a gorgeous kit. But I am going to share with you 3 inspirational projects using it. Before we jump in, I want to share what's in the kit. This is your 6x8 stamp set. I'm going to bring in something white to put underneath it so you can see that beautiful floral blossom branch. So pretty. That's actually one piece, and then you get 2 single flowers. 3 bumblebees that are huge. Love those chunky little bumblebees. Easy to color in too. And then fun sentiments that say you're beautiful, sweet as honey, sweet as can be. Along with your stamp set, you get some coordinating dies. You get dies that will cut out all 3 bumblebees and all of your flowers, including the one that's on the branch. And then you get your fancy die, which is a honeycomb window die. It's so neat because it not only, I'm going to die cut it out with white cardstock for you to share with you what it looks like. But I thought it was neat because it cuts out the honeycomb pieces, and then it also cuts out a window. So you could turn it into a shaker if you wanted to. But lots of options with your honeycomb window die there. And then the size of the honeycomb coordinates with the size of the honeycomb that's in your stamp set. So if you wanted to fill in, you could. You have that option, especially with the solid 3 honeycomb piece in the stamp set. Okay, that is your first goodie bag. Second goodie bag, you get a really neat honey lacquer pen, and I tell you guys, it looks just like honey. So neat. It's a full-size tube. I'm going to actually grab some scratch paper and show you what it looks like. It truly does look like honey, and it dries hard and dimensional, like a glossy accents that's tinted. I'm going to show, maybe you can see the different facets of it, but the heavier you use the pen, the darker the honey color. The lighter you use the pen, the lighter it is. So I thought that was perfect for this kit. You get 3 sheets of cardstock. They're just cut in half to measure 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. You get some black glitter cardstock. You get some pale yellow glitter cardstock, and these are no shed, which is really nice. And then you get a real pretty matte gold. It's called Brillanca, and it's a paper. The backside is white, but it's a real pretty matte gold paper. So that's everything in the kit. So fun. I am looking forward to creating some bumblebee cards. So we're going to set everything aside and do some stamping. I'm going to stamp the larger image, so I decided to bring in a larger piece of cardstock. This I'm going to call it a swag, but it's the blossom branch will fit on a panel, but you'd have to put it at a diagonal. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring in one of my card panels that I just trimmed lengthwise down the center, and I can just stamp the whole thing, and then I can stamp some extra flowers on this panel as well. I'm going to grab my my front view flower and also my side view flower, and we'll also take our HeroArts Intense Black ink and ink up our images. Now I'm going to color my images within Copic markers. I did list the colors that I used, but I only colored 1 flower, and then I did the branch and the leaves. The rest of the flowers did take me a little bit of time, and I just cut that footage out only because I used the same colors that I used for the first flower that I'm going to show you that I colored in. But for the most part, the coloring's there. Hopefully it'll play. Last time I did my coloring, it kind of chopped off. It stopped the coloring process. I don't know why the video did that, but hopefully it'll show the process. I'm going to zoom in, and these are my images. I stamped 6 bumblebees, 2 each of the flowers, and we're just going to zoom in, grab my markers, play a little music while I color, and then when I'm done coloring, I will catch you back. coloring is all done. Now I know blossoms are white and with the pale maybe a little bit of pink, but I wanted some real pretty bright colored blossoms for my card today. Now before we die cut these out, we're gonna do a little bit of stamping. I'm stamping on some vellum, and I like doing this to dragonflies, sometimes to butterflies, but bumblebees too. Anything that has like a clear transparent wing, I like doing this too. So I have some vellum. I'm gonna take all 3 of my bumblebees, and I'm putting them on the lower portion of my vellum panel only because I'm going to flip my panel over and we're going to stamp 3 more. So we're going to have 6 in total. But I'm going to ink up my bumblebees with my Versamark ink. Now, at this point, you should treat your paper with your anti-static powder tool. I forgot that step, but it stamped okay and it heat embossed beautifully. But I'm gonna stamp my bumblebees, and then I'm bringing in some Wow embossing powder. This is Cloud 9 Wow embossing powder. It has a silver tint to it with a silver and iridescent tint. So it has lots of sparkle to it, and I thought it'd be perfect to add a layer of some vellum sparkled up wings to my bumblebees. Just to add a little dimension to them, and then also, you know, to add a little extra sparkle. Since we have a lot of sparkle with our glitter cardstock, I just wanted to add a touch more. So I heat embossed them. You can see how they look. Now the camera's really not picking up the rainbow facets of that glitter, but it's so, maybe in the close-ups you'll be able to see it, but it's so pretty. Now we're going to do some die cutting. I'm just going to take the coordinating dies and die cut out all of my images here, including my vellum bumblebees. We're just going to tack these down. You don't have to actually die cut out your vellum bumblebees. You could actually fussy cut out the wings, but I thought it'd be easier just to cut the whole bumblebee out. Once everything is die cut, I'm going to take my fussy cutting scissors and I'll just trim off each one of my bumblebee's wings. I'm going to bring in my precision glue, and we're going to trim off one. This one actually is the bumblebee that has the wings that are on the left and right full top view, I guess you could say. I'm going to add dots right at the base of the wings, and then I'm going to just lightly tap my vellum. Vellum with glue has the tendency sometimes to warp. So I'm just adding a very small dot of glue and then tapping my little wings right over that glue and kind of holding it down until the glue adheres. And I do fluff up the wings a little bit. HeroArts Vellum is really nice, and it doesn't take much to curl up the wings, but we'll just tap this down. But you can see the outline of the wings behind our bumblebee, and you have that sparkle, and I just love that. I did that to all of my wings of my fun little bumblebees. These are so pretty. Bumblebees in real life, to me, scare me, only because I was attacked by some when we were camping one year. But I think they are so pretty. So I love that they're bigger too. They're so easy to work with. Okay, after our bumblebees are done, we're taking a panel that measures 3 3/4 inches by 5. Just trim that down with my paper trimmer. And then I'm going to take our window honeycomb die. Kind of going to twist and turn it to where I want it. I wasn't sure if I was going to put my sentiment on the bottom, but either way, I wanted enough room for a sentiment or one of the bumblebees to be down there on the bottom. Just going to tack that down and run that through my die cutting machine, and then I cut out another panel that was the same size, that measures 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. Okay, this is my theory, and I don't know if it worked out or not. You guys can let me know. But I'm going to take my honey lacquer pen, and I wanted to basically scribble it behind my window enough to where it covers all of the honeycomb. And I'm doing this kind of generously. I actually am using quite a bit. And then I'm going to take my spatula and kind of just spread it out. Now remember, the around, see my circle here? The edges are darker honey color, and I just think that's so neat. And then when I spread it towards the middle, it thins it out so it's a lighter. Now I wanted it to dry clear, but I wanted it to kind of ooze up into my die cut window, if you know what I mean, just so it kind of adds a little bit of depth. And so it did it on a few of them. The center, of course, didn't. Now, when I did let this dry, we got to let this dry for quite some time. And when I do my videos, I want to do the whole process. So I didn't let it dry all the way when I finished my card project, but when it did dry, you'll see in the end, look at the middle card, you'll see how my honeycomb lacquer, it cracked on my cardstock. Now I'm using pretty heavyweight cardstock. I'd say it's about 120-pound cover weight. But it did crack in all of the little honeycomb pieces, and it also on that main area, which didn't bother me because it kind of went with the effect. I kind of liked the way it looked, but just a warning, it does, it will warp your paper, and it does crack once it's dried. Okay. With that being said, we set it aside to dry. We're going to work on our next card, and we'll go back to this last, giving it a little bit more time to set and dry. I'm trimming down a panel of black glitter cardstock. I'm actually going to trim it at an angle. This is a card front panel size, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I just angled it to where it's higher at the left and then lower at the right. And then I'm going to take a 3/4 inch strip of our gold Brillanca paper. I'm going to flip over my black glitter cardstock and add some of that matte gold paper right over the seam here. I'm going to trim off the excess on the left and right. And when I did this, I didn't center my gold paper. So what I'm going to do is trim 1/4 inch off. So this actually measures 4 1/4 by 5 inches. So it's going to leave me a little bit of a border on my card base, which I don't mind anyway. I like that. Okay, this is going to go in the very bottom. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and add some tape behind it. And then I love doing this to floral cards. I'm going to go ahead and add this. And then we're going to take 2 of the side profile flowers and then 1 of the full flowers. And I'm going to pop them up with some foam adhesive. And I'm going to put them just so they're overlapping slightly on the right of my card. I'm going to take that same honeycomb die and die cut out some honeycomb pieces with black cardstock. Now you can completely skip this step and use your stamp if you wanted to. In the stamp set there is a honeycomb solid image. If you wanted to use your black ink and stamp instead of die cutting, you could do that. That's an option. But I wanted some dimension towards the top of my card. I stamped the sentiment that says sweet as can be. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some of my black honeycomb pieces with some very small foam squares. I kind of fiddled with the placement of these a little bit until I was happy with the outcome. But I'm just adding foam squares behind. I ended up using 5 of these. And we're going to put them to the right of our sentiment. Just kind of lining them up. And then when I die cut out my panel for my honey lacquer card, I kept those inside pieces to the frame. And I'm going to add a few of them to the bottom of, just on top of my black glitter cardstock to make it stand out. But I instead of throwing them away, I just kept a few. I added my bumblebees. And I'm still fiddling with the placement. It's just not flowing right for me. So I'm going to trim off my flowers on the right side here. And we're going to remove, basically we were going to remove 1 off of the top. And then we're going to keep 6 on the bottom of the white honeycomb pieces. And then I was happy with that. Kind of a little more balance. We're going to add bells and whistles to that in a minute. We're going to check and see if this is drying, and it's still got a little tackiness to it. So we're going to work on our next card. For our next card, I die cut out a 3 1/2 inch circle using white cardstock, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says "You're beautiful" towards the top. After our sentiment stamped, I'm going to flip over our blossom branch. No, I'm going to flip over my sentiment circle, and I'm going to adhere that over the top of my blossom branch. We're going to just kind of position it just so for the most part most of the flowers are showing. And I'm going to kind of center it on my card base and then trim off the circle that's on the right side here, and also the leftover branch that's hanging over off the bottom. This would be perfect for a slimline card too, guys. Okay, now once we have this, I thought we needed a little bit of extra something in the back. I'm trying to steer away from my polka dots. Usually with bumblebees, I love bringing in black and white stripes or polka dots. So I'm so thankful that we have that black glitter cardstock. I ended up grabbing one of my panels. We're going to set that aside. I'm going to take a slightly larger circle die than our sentiment one. Let's just grab our die. We're going to grab a little bit bigger one. And I'm going to use my black glitter cardstock in place of my polka dots, I guess I could say. Okay, we die cut that out. I'm going to add adhesive behind it. I want to center this around my circled sentiment. Now the circle sentiment is going to be popped up. You can see I added foam squares behind it, but my glitter is going to be directly on my card base. So I want to make sure that it's centered. And then I just tacked it down, and then I'm going to trim off the right side, and then I can place it on my card base. Now I'm just lining up my right side of the circle and then the bottom edge of my florals, and then it's already centered for me, lined up. Love the way this looks. It's so neat. Okay, now I have one of my flowers left. I'm going to use foam adhesive, add some behind here, and we're going to add that on top of our circle, making our blossoms a little bit more dimensional. And I like, when they're flowers like this, I like to twist them, turn them, kind of curve them around the sentiment, and I think that's a good spot. I'm going to use one bumblebee for the card. I'm going to add him right next to that floral we just added. And basically this card is done. We're going to add bells and whistles in just a minute. We're going to make our last card here. Now here is where the honeycomb is not quite dry yet, and it's actually making my paper kind of concave a little bit. So I guess I should have waited until it was dry, but for the most part I think we could work with it. So before we do anything, I'm going to bring in some fun foam and also some of my double-sided tape. Since it's still a little bit, it's not dry all the way, what I'm going to do is add fun foam to my panel first. So I have that black glitter cardstock, and it measures 4 inches by 5 1/4, so I'll have a little bit of a border on my card base. I'm going to go ahead and add some of my double-sided tape to my fun foam, and I've mentioned this so many times, but I like to use fun foam that's adhesive backed. That way I can just add adhesive to one side. But I'm going to add my fun foam over my panel, centering it here, and then you can see I can just remove the release paper and that's ready to go. But we're not going to remove it just yet. I'm going to add adhesive behind my black glitter cardstock and add this to the front of my card base. Usually I like to create my panels first and then add it last to my card base, but we're kind of working around our honey lacquer background there. Now we're going to go ahead and add our panel right over the top, just making sure it's centered. And I did get a little bit of honey on the very top of my card, on the top left, and I didn't want to redo it because I used a lot of my lacquer. So I thought we would create some banners and cover it with some banners. And it worked out really good. I like the outcome. I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says "Sweet as Honey" on a strip of 1 1/4 inch wide cardstock. A little bit towards the bottom. I'm going to have some open area on the top to put a bumblebee. I'm going to use my scissors and just fishtail the very bottom. If you have a square punch, you guys can just use your square punch and add a fishtail to the bottom. or even use a banner die if you have those, but straighten it out a bit. So that's my sentiment. I'm going to fishtail my gold Brillanca. Almost like sounds like somebody's name, Brillanca. I'm going to go ahead and fishtail my black glitter cardstock, which is 1.5 inches wide. My gold is 3/4 inches wide, guys. I'm going to layer all 3 of these together with my gold being in the back. Since it's paper, I thought the weight would look nicer. I'm going to go ahead and use my mini stapler. The staples that I have in it are gold, and I thought it would work out perfect. I'm going to go ahead and staple these twice, and then I'll use my scissors and trim a straight line off the very top. And I did trim it before I figured out my placement, so I have to trim it again, otherwise I'll have a crooked sentiment. And I had enough room to do that, which is nice. So this is going to cover that smudge of honey on the top of my card. I'm going to flip over my sentiment banners and add some foam adhesive behind it. And then we have 3 bumblebees left, and I'm going to use all 3 for this card. We're just going to remove the release paper and add this to the top of our card, and I'm going to scoot it over so it starts at about 1/4 inch from my honeycomb panel. Okay, I'm going to flip over my bumblebees, add some foam adhesive behind here, and it worked out good. I have 3 foam squares left. I'm going to actually add the one that's facing the right on top of my banners. And those wings make a huge difference. I encourage you guys to check that out and try that with your dragonflies too, or butterflies are pretty. Okay, almost like fairy wings. Okay, I'm going to add my last one. I'm going to actually turn it so it's towards the right. And I think that finishes my 3rd card. Now we're going to bring them all in and add just a few details. Since there's a lot of sparkle, I just wanted to bring in a little subtlety to the center of my flower. So I'm bringing in my Nuvo Simply White glitter drop, or actually they're not glitter drops, they're Simply White drops, crystal drops. What I did was I added some lines to the center of the flowers and then dots. This lines would be like for the stamens, and the dots would be the ends of the stamens. And then we're going to add some just white dots to our honeycomb card. And then those are my cards today, guys. I hope this gives you some inspiration on how to use the HeroArts My Monthly Hero Kit for January. If you want to see still shots, I have them over on my blog. But thank you so much for joining me. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.